is I don't think I'm going to make it this time. He's had lots of issues. At 88, my one friend that I talk with every day, which you're welcome to talk with on Zoom, has had 5 stents put in so far. And he keeps feeling like he's almost at the end, but they keep him going. The modern medical, miracles, basically. So that's pretty cool. We should probably talk about this guy too. But the reason I brought up the Pope is because talking about the Pope, I've noticed, that all the recent popes have been clean shaven. So I asked, who was the last Pope that had a beard? And it was the Pope that died in 1770. And since 1770, all the popes have been clean shaven. But then I discovered that there are actual rules about having beards, depending on your order and everything. And actually, for the Pope, it's up to him, you would think. So he could have a beard if he wanted.
He hasn't been more than 250 years.
Yeah, kind of interesting. I'm obviously been interested in beards for, more so recently than I used to. I used to have, the one, if you've seen pictures of me, I used to keep it trimmed the way you're supposed to. When I first exited the military, I had a mustache because I learned my wife wouldn't kiss me unless I had one. And, back then I was young enough that was important. Funny? Okay. In any case, it was about 2 years later that I started growing the beard, and I remember one of my colleagues, Bob Kuhner, who was the chair that year, said to me, "Well, you're starting to look professional." Because it's, it was like, if teaching philosophy, you need a beard, at least if you can grow one, right? But I kept it trimmed up until COVID. And once COVID hit, I thought, oh, the heck with it. And I've been just letting it go. And, my wife wants me to trim it, practically everybody I know thinks, I look better, at least, as I, cut the hair. This is getting...
You know how much money you save on haircuts?
Oh, well, I don't actually, because in 1978, I bought a trimmer at the PX in Fort Ord, California, and I've been cutting my own hair ever since. There's some funny stories about that, at least to me, because the one year when I was at the NSA, and President Reagan was coming to open the new building there, I ended up being in the honor guard for him. And I had given myself a haircut, and my wife usually would touch it up a little bit, and she had the adapter off, and she said, "Oh, there's one little spot here," and she went zzz, and I had a square bald spot that was right at the edge of my hat, the barracks cap. They have other names for that hat too. But in it, because of its shape, But in any case, I had to go to the barber that morning, and the barber wasn't open yet, so I was, very anxious. And he did come, and I said, "Could you fix this?" And he says, "Well, I can't fix it, but I could give you a really high and tight." I said, "Okay, go to it." Well, he did, and I remember standing across. We had the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Coast Guard, Air Force. We had everybody all in the honor guard. Got to see Reagan and Caspar Weinberger and Nancy walk by, and Caspar was like this. He had, you don't see that on TV because they always set him up so that you don't see that.
Yeah.
But he had that really, it's just, and he was Secretary of Defense at the time. So
Scoliosis?
I guess whatever causes your neck and your back to be like that. But they smelled like a funeral parlor when they walked by. They had so much makeup on. But that was neat. That was a funny story for with the haircut business. Be careful. Pardon?
Did you panic at the time when she,
Oh yeah, because when I put the hat on, it was obvious, and so I had to do something. However,
Is that the last time you ever cut your hair?
no. That's you learn, But I haven't cut my hair now, obviously, since March 2019, something like that.
October 18th.
But so I'm curious about beards, and I looked it up, and there's actual rules. Some orders require beards.
You guys go.
So that's interesting. At least to me.
awkward lengths that you gotta get through. It's better when you do it.
Well, I always felt like at some point in my life, I'm just gonna shave it all off and just the hell with it.
Yeah, go long for my hair's falling out like
Yeah.
fire. As long as I can.
Well, did I start that? I did, and it's working. Sorry about the quality of my video. Obviously, I don't care very much how it comes out. And this is missing again. Some days it's here, some days it's not. Right now, it's not. I can tell. It's not just me. Oh, it's over here. I hadn't noticed. I can be oblivious, which is just true. So anyway, the quiz question I asked, I haven't gotten that many responses yet, and that's curious. But also, I think I was not clear on what the quiz question really was, possibly because I waited until someone reminded me, hey, what's the quiz question? But the quiz question is, what do you think of my theory? That what Thomas Aquinas is trying to describe as angels would today be the equivalent of the forces that we talk about in the standard theory. The four forces that are out there, which, by the way, that's even confusing to me because they're all on they're all related to one another because everything is waves, at least in some sense. It's all light, which is kind of curious too. In fact, I should mention Robert Grosseteste. And I want light. Just out of now, so Grosseteste, as you can see, is a contemporary of Aquinas, and the Bible starts off by saying, God said, "Let there be light," right? So there's an interesting connection there, and if you're a theologian, you start off with that, and you start trying to figure out, well, what all is light, and so he's one that does play with that, and that's kind of interesting from a historical sense. If we want to go and look at others that are trying to figure out. So, what I'm really suggesting is that Aquinas is trying to do what we would say today is modern physics. Not physica in the sense of nature, but physics in the sense of the Big Bang. And what caused it, and obviously they accept the concept of God as that than which nothing greater can be thought, which is being, big B, basically everything, including more than what we're possibly able to conceive of because of our limitation, right? And that's what the theologians are talking about as God. So of course you get into all the kind of sub-theological impressions of what God might be that are basically pagan. You get right down to it. In fact, if you were to read Harold Bloom, I don't think I mentioned him. The American Religion. Where he basically argues that the homegrown American religions are going to take over in the United States, and that he predicts eventually there will only be two, the Southern Baptist Convention and the Latter-day Saints, and he even geographically locates them. That's kind of, I'm surrounded at home by Baptists on the one side and Mormons or Latter-day Saints on the other. My wife, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, when we were stationed in Berlin, she joined the Latter-day Saints. This is old stuff, but we got married Episcopalian. Even though I was Roman Catholic, she was Episcopalian, and she didn't want to become Catholic, and it was easy for me to be Episcopalian. And then, did you ask me your question?
Yeah, what's Episcopalian?
An Episcopalian
Yeah.
is what they started calling the Church of England
Oh.
after the Revolution, because you didn't want to be in the Church of England in the United States, because we were no longer swearing fealty to the king or the queen, right? In England they call it the Anglican Church, but it's actually still united with the Episcopal. An episcopate is the bishopry, it's the bishops, basically. But so in any case, Don and I got married in the Episcopal Church, and while we were at the Defense Language Institute in California, we went to an Episcopal church right there in Salinas where we had our apartment. And the one day, the priest was all smiley at this young couple that was sitting in the front, and they looked pretty. I mean, the young man was, on the one side, and the young woman was sitting on the other. He obviously was deferential to them. And I thought maybe they had just gotten married yesterday, Saturday. But then at communion, they got up and went up and received communion. And when they turned around, I realized that the young woman with the long hair had a beard. And this is 1979. Forgive me, but I didn't react very well at the time. I've improved. We have moral progress, right? But in any case, at the time, I was horrified, and my wife, she still is, really, pretty much. And so that was the end of our attendance in the Episcopal Church as of that point. And if you're familiar with the news going on, Shelby Spong and others, Bishop Shelby Spong,
DC, right? The National Church, did she just say that, have that speech?
Oh yeah, I saw her, and she was doing what she's supposed to do, actually. So there's no issue there. But in any case, so we started trying out other churches, and while we were in Berlin, we had gone to a Lutheran church which had 3 old ladies and the young minister. And that didn't really hit us. We went to the one on Post that was Roman Catholic, Father Wagner. I enjoyed that. He had some good stories. But we also went to the non-denominational service, which is kind of a neat American thing. You can have a church service that's not associated with any denomination. That's pretty neat, actually. But then finally, the one month, she wanted to try out the LDS church, and I was horrified because there was no Mysterium Tremendum there for me. You know, I'm Roman Catholic. I like the all the looking up, taking your mind, ecstasis, right? Getting away from the stasis. The Latter-day Saints church was full of kids, and all this activity, and people were, and they weren't trained theologians at all. They were just everyday folks, and they were up there talking. You could hardly hear them because of all the paper airplane. No, they didn't have paper airplane. But it was a lot of activity, and I was like, I'm going to be glad when this month is over. And Donna surprised me and said, I want to join this church. And she's still a member, and it's been great for her, actually. However, and I have some neighbors that think that I'm kind of a dry Mormon, that basically I haven't been baptized as far as I haven't been dunked in the Nestea plunge, I call it. But I feel like if you've got an understanding of religions